on today's video, let's answer one of the most frequently asked questions, which have been asked in many different variations, but this video will answer in one video all those questions, and that is, should I go backwards and expertise a legendary commander that is not the latest and greatest generation? In this video, we're going to talk about what the best approach is for that, as well as what I'm doing, and give you guys a few small tips and tricks on how you could potentially manage your legendary commander sculptures to get the best bang out of your buck and use them as best of your ability, because those don't come easy unless you spend a lot of money. So sit back, drop a like on the video. Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Gekko Gaming. Today, we're going to talk about legendary commanders, more specifically, which ones you should expertise when, why, and how, and as well as everything that I do when I come up with what I'm going to invest my legendary commander sculptures on next. Before we start though, I am a sponsored content creator by Rise of Kingdoms. If you enjoy the content, consider liking the video and hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell to get a notification. We upload daily Rise of Kingdoms videos, we stream twice a week, Civil Wars, KVKs, wars in general, everything and anything, some whale showcasings, among other things in this channel. A lot of you new subscribers joined us. Welcome to you all. Thank you for your support. And those of you who haven't yet, I hope to earn your subscription today. A lot of you keep asking me if you should go backwards in expertise X commander. And honestly, the straightforward answer to all of that is that each and every case is individual. I cannot give you a cookie cutter answer to what you should and shouldn't expertise because it's based on many different factors. But I want to give you a way to think about your legendary commanders in a more efficient way, as well as a little bit of tips and tricks on how I do these things. So I am not a big whale. I do spend a decent amount of money on the game, but I'm not a huge whale. And so I'm also limited in my legendary commanders. I need to pick and choose what I go with. And after 600 days, I picked up a decent amount of legendary commanders expertised, but I'm not someone who has all of them, and even I haven't expertised some of the better ones as part of my coming up into the game and spending more as time went by, and I missed out on all of these potentially really, really good commanders. So the way I recommend expertising legendary commanders is as such. Personally, I do think that the latest and greatest generation is the one that you should be aiming for, and there are commanders who are previous generation commanders that work really well with new generation commanders, right? So that's where the tough part begins. But the way I do things is I like to keep my legendary commanders available at all time. The commander sculptures are available at all time, and I keep hoarding them. And once a set of commanders comes out, that is a set of commanders that I want to expertise, then I focus on that. The plan is not to expertise commanders that you don't know you're gonna get your bang out of your buck. And so, for example, Marisa was one where, as an archer player, I did not want to expertise because I did not see the usability of her. But guess what? I was completely wrong. And when I found out how wrong I was, I went on and expertised her. The same kind of went with Artemisia. I was skeptical about expertising her, and then we needed a garrison person one day, and I was like, screw it, I'll do it. The way you should think about legendary commanders is, let's essentially allow the big whales to test them. And I'm being as honest as I can be with you guys, because there are folks who do expertise these commanders regardless because they can, and then there are tons of tests of their usability. Now, I am not someone who would say, you know, you shouldn't expertise them instantly. If you see a commander that you know is going to be useful for you, go wild. I tend to give it a little bit of time to see how the meta shifts, and then I put my legendary commanders into a commander. Now, obviously, you don't want to put those legendary commander sculptures in too late. You want to have that commander available when he or she are the best possible thing out there, so that you can really enjoy the life shelf of your commander, rather than having a commander that's life shelf is already fairly long and could end at any moment. There are commanders in this lineup of commanders that we've gotten after the gold key ones who definitely have a very small life shelf, as well as a very small usability situation. What I call usability situation is, how can you use this commander on the field on this point? An example is Richard I. Richard I in the early game was insanely good. If you were in the early game someone who had Richard Charles Martel expertise before KVK Season 1, which some people did, that was a garrison that could not be broken. And it was a great commander for everything and anything. Nowadays, he is just as good, but not... He's good, but not just as good, which means he still heals like crazy. He's awesome in events like he always was. He's great on every scale, pretty much. He's still used to this day as a main commander. Richard Alexander, Richard Julius Caesar for an Osiris League Season 2 run. He is still 100% useful, but he is not as useful as he was before. So maybe he's 90% useful. The same can be said about Yi Sung-Ye, who was massive early on. He broke the hell out of the Richard hold. And he is still to this day one of the most useful legendary commanders, the best one in the game, and still the #1 recommended to expertise first. But some commanders kind of dropped off a little bit. And some of them actually got revitalized later on. A great example is Constantine. Constantine was really meh for people in the beginning because you have Richard, and Constantine seemed just kind of like a similar version to Richard, which is nice, but it didn't have enough oomph to replace Richard. But as time went on and Attila Takeda came out and Constantine became the counter, then all of a sudden he gained a massive life shelf, and whoever expertised them early might have thought it was a mistake, but as time went by, they got their reward out of it. So which ones you should go backwards for? You should probably only go backwards when you know you have enough legendary commander sculptures that you can expertise the next 2 in the next generation. And only when you know you can do that, that's when you start looking backwards. That's the only time when you start looking backwards. If you have current commanders that are available, you should probably invest on the current generation rather than previous ones. There are a few slight exceptions. I would argue that if you expertised Guan Yu and you need to choose between Leonidas or Alexander, I would choose Alexander over Leonidas. Even if, you know, it means that in here you can win Mightiest Governors, and in here you are just going to have to straight up spend Legendary Commander Sculptures. I mean, winning Mightiest Governor is great, but Legendary Commander Sculptures for Legendary Commander Sculptures, I would take Alex over Leonidas, as Alex with Guan Yu is actually nasty. So there are a few very rare instances. For example, if you're someone who does not have a Minamoto expertise, or your Minamoto is just not good enough, and you're not someone who spends enough and is not going to be like a rally leader, so Attila Takeda is not necessarily in your play, a situation where you expertise Takeda and instead of Attila you go back for a Genghis Khan is very possible. Why? Because Genghis Khan, as at his expertise, is an insane DPS commander, which is stupendously useful. Open field rallies, events where you need to do damage. He is the #1 guy. And so if you had to choose between an Attila Takeda that will most likely never be rallying or a Takeda Genghis Khan, that is a situation in which you go backwards. Quite honestly, I think that if you're someone who is in a younger kingdom, then, and that means kingdoms that are not on the same cycle of Mightiest Governor and Wheel as the early kingdoms. So right now, anyone who isn't at Yi Sun-Sin and Theodora as of the recording of this video, which is going to come out on July 14th, 2020. If you're one cycle behind or more, you have a huge advantage, because you'll allow the first cycle to essentially test what's good and what's bad. You'll be able to see them in action in KVKs and whatnot, and only then you'll know whether you can expertise them instantly, or you should expertise them instantly or not. Something of that sort. When I tell you, you can go backwards, you always can. But should you? I would put an argument that it's probably a better choice for you to hoard commanders for the next generation, and only after you've secured the next generation and you're still not at the next generation, then you can use those commanders to go backwards a little bit for some of these commanders. It roughly is the same amount of time between each generation. So in a sense, if you can, from the time you picked up generation 2 to the time you're going to pick up generation 3 to accumulate enough sculptures to do so, anything that's above that, in between that gap, you can go backwards and backwards fill the ones that you haven't yet. At the end of the day, if you keep up with this, you'll reach a point where you kind of like I am right now. I am an archer player. And if Yi Sun Sin and Theodora wouldn't have come out as garrison, if we had now cavalry commanders, I would have honestly gone back and expertised my Alexander, or expertised my Constantine, or expertised my Genghis Khan. But because the balance changed and now you have garrison commanders, which might be very, very useful for me, I kind of had to go into the current generation. But the fact that I can get to 1,000 sculptures and still have a couple of months for cavalry commanders and then infantry commanders, and only then the archers will come out, which is what I focus on, it gives me a big window in which I can now go backwards and expertise commanders. The ones that I'm gonna probably aim at are Alexander, Constantine, and Genghis Khan. As I mentioned previously, Guan would come up next, and that would put me at an infantry archer player. And the main reasons I would go with these commanders is because Alexander is by far one of the better, if not the best, infantry commander out there. This is by far the best DPS commander out there right now. Cavalry specific too. This would come in handy with my Charles Martel as a garrison pair, and I am focusing a little more on garrison nowadays than on archers as I have the sculptures. And then from there, Guan is also a hugely good open field and rallier for infantry. And if I have my Alexander expertise, which is one of the best, if not the best, infantry commander, paired with Guan, they are very, very strong. So yes, I am pretty much bailing out on Attila Takeda. I'm not going to be rally leading because I don't have the equipment to do so, and I don't feel like investing on the equipment to do so. I might go be a rally leader later on if another awesome set of legendary commanders comes out that are worth it for that particular role. But that's how I look at commanders. My plan right now is potentially expertise Yi Sun Sin and Theodora, which at this level I can pretty comfortably expertise her and get him even further up. With another wheel or two coming up of Yi Sun Sin, I'll be able to get more sculptures and then potentially have enough to expertise them both with what I have. And then I have a full cycle worth of gaining commander sculptures to be able to at least expertise the one archer commander that'll come out next, if not both of them. And we go from there. There are a couple of things that you should know before we wrap this up. Number one, towards the end of the year, there are a lot of events and tons of legendary commander sculptures. Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, there's one more event in there that I forgot for sure. I believe that on the last 2 months of the year, we had 4 seasonal events, which accumulated to 120 plus sculptures out of events, plus recharge on top of that, plus your dailies. So you can really get to a point where you can go backwards. Please, before you go backwards, make sure you've secured your future. And if you're a low spender, someone who has to pick and choose which commanders you're playing with, then it's more specific to what kind of troops you want to be in, what kind of commanders you currently have. And that's more a case-based question. And I encourage you, if you're someone like that, come to our streams Wednesdays and Saturdays, 4:15 p.m. UTC. Ask your question with as much specific information about which commanders you have, which one you're thinking of, and all that, and we'll walk you through your specific situation and what's better for you. For now, I'm Gekko. I'm out of here. I appreciate every single one of you. Dropped a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, did all that good stuff. You guys are amazing. I'm going to take a moment and say thank you, because these past couple of weeks have been just insane. In the last week alone, this month, we've broken pretty much every single record on this channel. So it's humbling. It really is. It's a dream that I've been dreaming for years. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near hitting the dream per se, but I am closer than I've ever been. And I'm moving towards that target. And that's all because of you guys. So I'm really humbled, and thank you. Really. We'll talk about it a little bit more on stream. Okay? Wednesday, 4 p.m. UTC. See you there. Take care and have a good one. Peace.